Creek Nation. That was our 1796 Treaty of Coleraine.
Are the stories about how they settled together and married together and had children together.
Here at Creekwood, they have the gang system of labor.
Praise the Lord and pass the plate and eat fried chicken.
Just leave it alone.
Mama, please don't cry.
We're talking about 3 continents coming together on this federal road.
There's no such thing as coming home with a C or a D, and you better not come home with an F.
The 2022 Old Federal Road Storytelling Festival at Creekwood featured the theme, Homecoming, One Road Tells Many Stories. The theme honored the people, places, and events that emerged over time from the remarkable Federal Road. Our rolling wagon wheel symbolizes stories spun from Federal Road history. Our student art and infographic contest winning entries reflect that history as well. The Federal Road opened in 1807 as a rugged interstate route of its time, and it crossed ancestral lands possessed by the Tuskegee Creek Nation. Initially a postal road, it gained notoriety as a military road and later as a traveler's road for pioneer settlers migrating from the eastern United States to present-day Alabama. 3 cultural groups, the Creeks, African Americans, and European Americans, converged in the settlements along the Federal Road passing through South Macon County, Alabama. The festival opened on Friday, October 28th, with a public humanities program inside Creekwood. The program featured 4 distinguished panelists who collectively represented the 3 cultural groups of our area. A robust question and answer segment with the audience followed the panelists' presentations. Guests enjoyed refreshments at the conclusion of the program.
Tuskegee has an important place here in Alabama. Tuskegee has a very important place in Oklahoma, has a very important place within the Creek Nation. Tuskegee is a tribal town, so for lack of a better phrase, it's a tribe. It's a separate ethnical group that everybody else would identify as Tuskegee. And they're originally up from around eastern Tennessee area. After DeSoto came through, there's about 150 years of kind of population migration and movement. They first stopped at over there by Fort Toulouse, interacted with the French. The mounds on near Fort Toulouse are called the Tuskegee Mounds. Not that those Tuskegee built the mounds, but those were the ones that were living there later on. From there, they moved over here because that was an area that was ceded in 1814. So again, you see people having to move to the west, being confined. And then they get removed with the rest of us. We have a Tuskegee, Oklahoma. We have a Tuskegee tribal town, obviously. We have a Tuskegee cemetery, which was actually a rally point for the northern refugees, or excuse me, the Creeks who were not Confederates when they were trying to escape, and they actually had moved through the territory, and Tuskegee Cemetery was a place for folks to meet up and head north to Kansas. And then Tuskegee Indian Baptist Church. It is one of the oldest churches in Creek Nation, and my great uncle actually used to be a preacher there. So there's several tie-ins with Tuskegee, and of course, you know, I understand Tuskegee Airmen as well as the other things that have happened here. And so it is an interesting take to have different perspectives on that.
Whether you're in the house or whether people were working out in the fields, slavery was an incredibly dangerous system. It's a system that required work, hard work, and long hours of work in the hot sun, where they would, be exposed to the elements. And they were very high expectations. And if enslaved people didn't meet those expectations, if they didn't follow the directions of their enslaver, Stephen Pace, or his representatives, then they would be punished. And so we know that violence and punishment was a very real, a very daily present part of this system of slavery. And I always tell my students when I talk about violence and slavery that it wasn't necessarily that everyone experienced whipping every day, all of the time, although we certainly know that there are places where that was the case. But really what I would like to emphasize to them is that violence undergirded the system, right? So even if you're not experiencing daily violence, the threat is what kind of kept the system going and what kept people working in some of these difficult and horrific conditions. So violence is a real present reality for enslaved people working wherever, in whatever position that they're working in.
So Black land stories are stories about land which we define as anything that's not on water. So most Black land stories take place in cities. People live on land in cities, not on water. And Black land stories include the ways that people define land for themselves. That might, and I'm going to give some really specific examples of that, but that might mean using different words, like not talking about gentrification, but talking about being pushed out. Not talking about Black land loss, which is an official category now, but talking about how their family had their land stolen. So it's a whole different set of language. Black land stories often encode how our people got so resourceful. That story is tied to how we have cared for land and the stories of the people on that land. Black land stories usually include some clues about ceremony as a way of supporting resilience, and those ceremonies are usually land-based and often include talk about regenerating land, literally tilth of soil, as a practice for healing.
But Ms. Amy's children had a very good interest in education. So even though they did not have this education that we have today, you was stressed. You had to go to school and you had to learn, and you didn't have no such thing as coming home with a C or a D, and you better not come home with an F. And you know, we did not have the telephone that we have now, the telephone system. So if you did anything wrong at school, when you got home, they were waiting for you. How did they find out you had been altogether bad at school? You know, we have no idea. We have no idea. So, but in our family, we had business owners, like I said. We had farmers. We had a preacher. We had medical staff, because my dad and 3 of his other brothers worked at the VA as nursing assistants. Then coming up to the next generation, my generation. Now my generation is the 3rd generation. And like I said, education was stressed, you know, in our families. So we had to learn, and we had to go to school. And we had to make sure we did our best when we were there. Miss Amy did not have that education, but her legacy says that you have to be educated to survive in this world. And I think most of us have done that, because now we have nurses, we have social workers, we had some preachers, we've had business owners, entrepreneurs. I mean, we have had the whole gamut of skilled persons, all because Miss Amy had decided that we all needed to have an education.
Why do you think programs like this are important?
Because people need to know their history, they need to know their family background. And you know, we were not told how important history was. And now, a lot of people that knew stuff, they're gone. And so if you don't go to things like these, you won't learn a lot. We don't have anyone left in our generation that can tell us anything. So I'm learning by going to see what other people are doing, what other people are saying, and putting it with mine to try to build our family history.
I feel very stimulated by tonight. I feel very intrigued and honored about the unity that has been expressed and the intent of this program. The care of the selection of people and all their diversity so representative of this area. I am from Montgomery, and I have been to the Ridge before, the Storytelling Festival before. But tonight, in addition to hearing about, I was especially intrigued with the Black Land Project, and to know that there's someone, a native daughter that's working on that. I'm a fan of Dr. Williams, and my latest love is just reading about the cover art for the program and how that came about. So I'm all over the place, but this has been a very rich evening, and it promises a wonderful day for tomorrow.
Our Arts and Culture program on Saturday, October 29th, held at the Creekwood Outdoor Pavilion, featured written and spoken word, music, and a Reader's Theater performance to pass on the memory of events, people, places, myths, facts, and beliefs. Arts and Culture MC Tuskegee City Councilwoman Norma McGowan Jackson opened Saturday's festivities with a Yoruba cultural tradition. She poured libations to honor the ancestors.
I want to lift up those who were a part of what has been coined the Great Ma'afa, those Africans who were taken, stolen, and transported, whose bones now line what we know of as the greatest mass cemetery on the planet, the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, where they form a triangle. Some of them jumped, some of them were tossed over, some of them died and their bodies were tossed over, but their bones line the floor of the Atlantic, and we remember them and we say Ashe. We want to remember those that came to the New World, those who were transported to the islands of the Caribbean and to South America and what we call North America, who survived the transatlantic slave trade, and we say Ashe.
Mistinguette Smith, who has deep ancestral roots in Roba-Macon County, led a storytelling writing workshop. She read excerpts of her poetry and prose to prompt audience members to write and share their stories.
Hope is to give you a little extra spice to help make your storytelling richer as I share my own stories. So I'm going to read a little, I'm going to give you a prompt, and then I'm going to ask you to circle up with two people next to you. So you're in a group of three, do a little writing and read each other your paragraph, your little piece of story. Are you ready for me? You ready to do this? Yeah, okay, I got some quiet assent. I will go with that. I want to begin with a prose piece about my first visit to the Ridge. I'm not going to read the whole thing, I'll just read the beginning. And then I will give you your own writing or storytelling prompt related to it. This piece is called Red Jack. All my life, I was afraid of my grandfather, and all my life, I was afraid of the South. They were the same for me, his sun-weathered body and the land he came from. Even when he lived in a fourth-floor walk-up of a northern city tenement, he carried with him a bullwhip, a pistol, and a wide-bladed knife. I remember the heavy thunk of each weapon as he sat it on the counter of his bar, out of my reach. He always traveled well-armed, equally prepared to meet the violence of a card game gone bad, or wild boar unfortunate enough to find itself lumbering toward him in the dark. He told me people called him Red Jack because he didn't like to lose. The smell of whiskey on his breath told the rest of the story. Jack was as mean as a sack of rattlesnake he once brought home for my grandmother to debone, soak in buttermilk, and fry up for dinner. Nobody asked where, in Cleveland, Ohio, he had found such a thing. He claimed that he was missing Alabama and so went out and killed it himself. If you asked him how he could be homesick for a place so full of hunger and danger. He'd skin you with his tongue, quick and clean as he could skin a rabbit. Red Jack was proud of being from hard country people. He had no use for sentiment. He didn't leave anything to waste. Roba, Alabama. That's where he said he was from. Every year he drove his dust-colored station wagon there, the sun-faded pages of the Green Book wedged between the dashboard and the window, even though he knew the route by heart. It took 2 whole days of traveling back roads through Ohio, Kentucky, and Tennessee back then. I could never go to a place like Alabama, he said. He never took me because it wasn't a place with the kind of things I was used to, like toilets that flush and hamburgers and comfortable places to sleep. He never took me there because things might happen because I was a girl. Baby, Roba, Alabama ain't no place to go for visiting, he once declared with his thick, warm laugh. It's a place you got to go to, 'cause your people are there. It's a place that's either in you or it ain't. That, he declared, slamming a shot glass on the bar top, is the goddamn truth. Which is how I found myself 40 years later in a white rental car, squinting at the place where Alabama's County Road 2 crosses the rufous dirt of Roba Road. That's a story about a man and a place, and the way who he was embodied a place that I had never seen. I'm going to invite you to take a few moments now to think about someone you know who embodies the way they think, the way they talk, the way they move through the world, embodies a place here that you care about, and to write about that for a few minutes.
Tuskegee's very own composer and pianist, Bill Perry, introduced his original instrumental composition called Anthem of a New Nation. His composition combined portions of the songs Lift Every Voice and Sing, The Star-Spangled Banner, Dixie, and I've Been Buked and I've Been Scorned.
This piece acknowledges racial disconnects. But now, this is the part we need to catch. The beauty of harmony. Harmony is putting two different things together, but when they're sounded together, you get something beautiful. Or putting 3 things together, or putting each one of those elements were different, but properly manipulated in the hands of somebody who know what they're doing, or somebody who's lucky, we get some beautiful stuff happening out of difference. We'll say something about Hans Christian Andersen. He said, when words fail, music speaks. So, I'm going to put all these different melodies together and let you slowly digest them. You don't have to have an opinion when I finish playing. Just go home, sleep on it, and see what you come up with. I don't want to give anybody indigestion, okay?
We recognize the art contest winners from the Anansi Youth Community Center in Ghana, Africa. Their teacher is Pascal Adekpui, our festival booklet cover artist. Ms. Floyd, Tuskegee Institute middle school teacher, praised her students' creativity when we awarded prizes for their winning infographic contest entries. Following the awards, Tony and Mary Brooke rendered a nostalgic performance of blues, country, and folk selections.
We're going to start out with a song about where I came from down in South Alabama. It's Crenshaw County, and it goes like this. 2, 3, 4. I was born in Crenshaw County, down there where my mama and my daddy taught me how to make it when time for Lean Laverne was the county seat. Yeah, spent time in a cinder block house. It was so cold it would freeze a mouse. Sun wouldn't shine for a week or two, but I always made it through. I was born in Crenshaw County, down there where my mama and my daddy taught me how to make it when time for Lean Laverne was the county seat. When times got hard, I felt the love from the folks back home and the Lord up above. You don't mind, I would like to say in that Crenshaw County way. I was born in Crenshaw County, down there where my mama and my daddy taught me how to make it when time for Lean Laverne with the county seat. Well, now come on, baby, take me by the hand. I'll lead you right down to the promised land. Well, you know that I wouldn't tell you no lies. It's just me and you, baby, gonna catch a few fireflies. Well, you know my word is as good as gold. A little piece on earth if the truth be told. If the truth be told. Yeah, you know that my word is as good as gold. A little piece on earth if the truth be told. told. If the truth be 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 told. Thank you.
Up next were students from the Jefferson Davis High School Theater Club, Montgomery, Alabama, directed by distinguished thespian Georgette Norman and their teacher Genesis Phillips. The students performed Act 2, Scene 6 of the play entitled Locked, co-authored by Phillips Whirling and Lorenzo Pace.
Come on, Mom, live with me. You've been trying to hide something from me.
I didn't say anything.
You said Dad tried to open this lock.
Did I? Well, maybe he did. So what?
So it means something. There was a reason he tried to open it. There was a reason he saved it. You know what it is.
Leave it alone, Lorenzo. Stop trying to interrogate me like I'm some criminal.
Tell me, Mama, please.
I said leave it alone.
Alice and Ezekiel? What type of African names are those?
We don't know their real names, Jelani. She only had that one name, Alice. Her slave name.
Slave name? My great-great-grandmother was a slave? Now wait a minute.
Don't you see? That explains some of these books I've been reading. Thank you, baby. Maybe Alice was ready to be free. Free of all the pain and the shame. Free of all her suffering and the beating of the yes masters and no sir. Maybe we are ready. I was wrong. I was wrong for so many years, Lorenzo. The lock is open and we move into the future. I was locked, but maybe I'm ready to be free. I know the past is the past. We can't escape that. But now we can enter and claim the future. The slaves always knew the day would come that they would be free. Now I know this day I am free. Alice will be proud of you, Lorenzo. She might think all this pain was worth it to see what her family became. And you are the future, Jelani. Alice gave our family this lock. We pass it down to each new generation to tell our story. Out of slavery, we build freedom. Out of shame, we will build pride. Thank you.
What part did you enjoy then?
The part I enjoyed the most, well, I enjoyed all of it. All of it was great. But children are my favorite. And I really enjoyed the last part with the students from JD.
The storytelling from the past?
Telling the past, yeah, and acting out the past to really give people a real idea what it was really like and how people are actually feeling today.
Well, there was just so much to enjoy. I enjoyed the combination of songs and stories that Mr. Perry did. I also enjoyed the music from the other couple there. He did a really great job of always telling a story in his songs, and so. But again, like my wife, that final part where the kids were acting out this story and telling our story, our history, was very moving. Very moving.